Hey guys, it's Michael Todd and welcome to Crafting with the Cult. So you guys, in today's video, I am going to show you how I go about making a vintage Christmas wreath. And this is the wreath that we're going to create today. Now today's wreath, I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more simple just due to filming it, which was a challenge. I am happy with the end result. I think it's kitschy. I think it's cute. It's not too overdone. I love the vintage tinsel. I think it's got a great sparkle to it. It's very much like a made in Japan piece. So we're going to get started, guys. Here we go. The first up are the tools that you're going to need. Look at these. That's it. You're definitely going to need some scissors for cutting. Snip, snip. Don't cut yourself. You're going to need a Sharpie. Now, I do prefer a black one. Next up, I would recommend getting some snips. Now, I've had these for years, and the rust does go on to prove it. Like I say, we love it rusty. So here is proof in the pudding. And you are definitely going to need a hot glue gun. Now, there are different adhesives that you can use. I do prefer a medium temperature glue gun, and I use these multi-temp Ad Tech, which I do find at Joann Fabrics. These glue sticks are my favorite. And yes, I do have favorite glue sticks. Next up, you're going to want your craft supplies. The first thing that you're going to want is a foam core. Now, I do get these at Michael's, and I do prefer the flat ones. I'm going to show you. There you go. Craft foam. Again, I get these at Michael's craft store. The reason I prefer the flat ones is because it gives you more space to work with. Next up, I have chosen, as I typically do, is a felt sheet. I also got this at Michael's craft store. Now, you don't have to use felt. You could use any other kind of fabric. And we're going to use this for the back of the wreath. You don't have to, but I would strongly recommend finishing the backside of your wreath. Now, I do have, obviously, the tinsel. This is vintage tinsel because, again, my wreaths, I try to make at least 95% vintage. Now, this is just a small sampling of some of the little accoutrements or the decorations that we're going to use to make our wreath. All kinds of different stuff, different textures, ornaments, glass, plastic, high-end, low-end. I love it all. I love mixing. Oh, look, you can see my setup there in the... Look, you can see it in the blue ball too. That's funny. But all kinds of little decorations. Now, I do prefer getting vintage greenery. I just think there is nothing better than a 1950s plastic Christmas. All right, we're going to head on to our first step. The first thing that we're going to do is we have our foam core laying on our piece of cloth, in our case, the felt. We're going to take our black Sharpie, get it open, there you go. And we're going to trace around the interior. Here we go, around, almost, Michael. This circle. Make sure that you do hold your foam core down so it doesn't slide on you. Now, like I said, this step isn't necessary, but because I do sell my wreaths, I do like to have the entire wreath finished. If you choose to hang it on a glass door, the last thing that you want to see is that nasty looking plain foam core staring back at you. I do know that one of my wreaths, Jamie from Mid-Century Wasted, has it hanging on like a mirror. And again, you can see the back of that. So now that we're done, we're going to go ahead, we're going to remove our felt piece, and I think you can all guess what the next step is going to be. That's right, we're going to cut it out. And yes, I did speed up this video. Y'all, look, it would have been 2 hours. Had I not sped it up? So you're going to cut around the perimeter. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to be covering it in. To cut through the middle, fold it in half, make an incision. Again, cut around your line. Don't worry about it being perfect. You're gonna be covering up the raw edges anyhow. There's our circle. Next up, we've got our hot glue gun plugged in, and we're gonna glue our felt or fabric, if you would prefer, around the back of your wreath. We're going to do the exterior as well as the interior. Now, what I'm about to show you is, again, there are some rough edges along the felt, and that's okay. What I would recommend doing is, if you do have any Sharpie or marker left over, make sure that goes towards your foam side. The next thing that you want to do is, when you are gluing this, don't stretch your fabric. If you do stretch your fabric, you may find that you have got some excess. You may, one of two ways, snip it and glue it down and create a seam line, or get real brave and try to cut it and pair it up so that you don't have a seam line. I'm starting to glue around. Oh, and the glue gun, not ready. So you see, I do use, and you will see throughout this video, I do use a generous amount of hot glue. Again, because I am reselling these wreaths, I really want to make sure that they last a number of Christmases. There we go. You see, there's excess. Again, nothing to worry about, because we're going to finish not only the back, but the sides as well as the interior to the foam core. We don't want anybody to see any of that foam. Now, I will say that if you are making it for yourself or for at home, and that's something that you don't mind, then I say don't worry about it. Me personally, again, because we're reselling, I want to, or selling, not reselling, upcycling is what we're doing here. I just want to make sure that you don't see that foam. Again, using a generous amount of the hot glue. You do not have to use hot glue. There are a number of other crafting glues. What I will see is, as you saw there momentarily, you can't be afraid to get burnt. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and put our tinsel along the exterior. Now, I will say this. If you plan on looping any kind of flower or ornaments along the exterior or in the interior, I would skip this step. Now, until the end. Now, I did cut off that edge because it was a little, wasn't really feeling it. And yes, you can see we're using quite a bit of glue. Again, we want this bad boy to last. More the merrier. You can never have too much hot glue. But as I was saying, you can use a number of other kinds of craft glues. I prefer the hot glue simply because it dries quickly. But again, you do have a tendency to burn yourself. Now, this is what I was saying about not worrying about those raw edges. You're going to cover them up. Remember, part of the charm to my wreaths, I think, is that while I do strive to make them look very good, a lot of the items that you will see that I use, they're not in perfect condition. Some of them might be broken. Now, we do hide those pieces. But I think that that really adds to the charm and adds to the overall aesthetic. I do really use a lot of glue, don't I? Jeez. And now we've made it around the exterior. What we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go on and do, we're going to do the interior. I was debating there about what I was going to do. Again, using a generous amount of glue. I can't stand doing the interior because I can never figure out if I want to go clockwise or counterclockwise. When gluing this down, make sure that you go back farther than you need to, just so that you're kind of double anchoring along the way. While I do use a lot of glue, more glue is never a bad thing. Now, what I will usually do is I'll kind of measure the tinsel out. That way I don't have to, it's a lot easier. You can see I'm going even faster, even though we're sped up here. I'm going even faster. It's just easier. It's not as cumbersome. I'm going to get that glue all the way over, press it down nice and tight. Now, I don't like the way that that looks. You can do a number of things. You could leave it just like that. I've decided to go ahead and add more tinsel. I've used pom-poms, I've used ribbon, I've even used, there was an old felt tablecloth with like a white yarn doily on it. I've used that. Your imagination is your only limitation. And I will say that just because I'm using these particular materials doesn't mean that you have to use these materials. Like I said, you don't want to use felt, use cloth. You don't want to use tinsel, use ribbon. You don't want to use either of those, do all ornaments, do all flowers. Totally up to you. So again, kind of measured out the tinsel just to make it a little bit easier for myself. And I am using a lot of glue again. Have I said how much I love this tinsel? I love this tinsel. It is so thick and fancy. It's silver, but it's got like a little tarnished look to it, and it really does add to that vintage feel. So again, I'm going to go ahead and wrap more tinsel around the interior. I'm going to kind of clean off, because when you do cut tinsel, you can see it there. It does shed. So again, a lot of glue, making sure that it lasts for us. And I will say this, because we are gluing essentially a fabric onto another fabric, we're just going to call tinsel a fabric. I really want to make sure that there's a good strong bond. Everywhere else, we're really gluing something down onto that foam core, and the foam core has a lot of texture. So it's really grabbing a hold and anchoring everything that we glue onto it. And again, this is why I prefer the hot glue. If we were using another kind of glue, there would be a little bit more of a setting time, and it would just take forever. So we've made it around. There we go. There's our back. I like it. It's cute. Again, if you saw it from the back, you're good to go. And the part that everybody's waiting for. This is what I'm going to say. The sky is the limit. There we go. A broken little reindeer. I've got doll heads. Christmas bulb lights. Christmas bulbs. Look at this. I never start off, always start with more items than what you're going to need. While I could certainly have fit everything that I had selected onto this wreath, it would have been a jumbled mess at the end of the day. So just kind of have, I would say, twice to three times as much that can fit onto your wreath available to you, because you don't want to limit yourself. Here you see me kind of playing around with things. I usually will have one or two, maybe three specific pieces that I really want to use. And what I really wanted to use was that Santa doll head. And then I kind of just play around with everything. I don't glue anything down. I just kind of work it out, see what I like, see what I don't like. And then once I think, okay, I really dig this with this and this here at this angle, then I start gluing things down. Now this actually came from this floral, came from, I think it was like a plastic guitar that had this on there, and the guitar was in really bad shape. No, it was a shovel, not a guitar. It was a white plastic shovel, and it had this running down it. So I ripped it off and I am upcycling it. And again, this is just one of those, this is not a vinyl Santa head. This is it's one of those harder plastic Santa heads. Like you could crinkle it up, I guess, if you wanted to. This was fun to glue down, let me tell you what. Again, more glue, the merrier. So I'm going around the sides. You will find a lot of times what I would recommend is that even though you glue the base of the item down, make sure that you glue the sides down too, just providing extra structure. You will see on a number of items, especially the bulbs, I really almost put in, it's almost like a cobweb, making sure that it's got not just the bottom, but also the sides and as far around the piece as you can possibly get. So here you see I do have some Christmas lights. Again, you want to add different colors, different textures. Don't limit yourself. Don't think, oh, that's a Christmas light. I could never use that on a wreath. Yes, you can. You can use whatever you want to. And I will say that the Christmas bulbs that I use, I do like the scratched up ones that showing their age and their wear. Typically, I will show with the hook side up. This blue one in particular, because it was broken, I did face it down. I just didn't want there to be sharp objects. And again, what I'm doing is I'm like, okay, I like the Santa head here. I like this blue bulb here. I'm starting to kind of place things around. I'm like, ooh, I really like how that looks. Again, I don't go into it saying this is how this wreath is going to look. I find that when I do that, I end up like forcing it and it never looks right. I don't like it. I end up tearing it apart. And yes, I have torn up wreaths completely because I did not like where they were going. And it was just one of those situations where it was too late. And again, here you see I am anchoring down the red Christmas bulb. And I did glue the 3 bulbs together here, right? Again, providing more structural support. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in with a little bit of tinsel. Going to use my scissors to really get it down there and kind of fluff it out with it. And I'm kind of not feeling just that plain tinsel in there. And then I was like, I bet you I could get some little greenery in there. This is where those snips are going to come in handy. Clip, clip. And we're going to tack that or glue that right in. Now it did come apart, so I am gluing not only the base in, but also the berries, making sure that it's good and solid. So I'm really kind of digging the overall aesthetic. And then I really started to struggle. Here I'm laying things out. I'm like, oh, this needs to go here for sure. Adding a little bit of that green. I will say, when making the vintage Christmas wreaths, what I did discover is the addition of that blue for some reason really just gives me that 50s vibe. I don't know why, it just does. And yes, I am playing around with a deer, and yes, I would glue it onto a wreath. I have a number of them. So again, just playing around with it, just seeing what I like, what I don't like. I don't glue anything down. I take my time. It does not look like I'm taking my time because we are going 4 times the speed. Again, there's that blue. And I think maybe that's what it is because you think of those old glass bulbs. You always had that blue light in there. And then I was like, I'm really digging this green Christmas bulb sticking out of here. Again, an excessive amount of glue, anchoring it down to the other pieces and around, providing more structural stability, filling in the gap, just cutting up a little bit of that tinsel, using my scissors to kind of fill it in. And that's another reason I like hot glue. It still gives you a little time to play around with it. I was really digging these green and red bulbs together, and I was struggling because I was like, am I going to be able to make this structurally sound? And then I discovered that I could. Again, excessive amount of glue. This is going to hold the bottom. This is going to hold the top here that you're seeing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put even more glue onto the side and up over onto the gold bulb. Again, taking a little bit of that tinsel, we're going to snip it. And you can't be afraid to make a mess during this. And because the glue is still hot, we could put that glue down in there. And then I decided that I did not like that Santa doll head there. And yes, I did rip it up. Like I said, I've ripped up an entire wreath before. I had to remove some of that excess hot glue, and then I discovered that I wanted him over here. I do have a tendency to bunch my items together, and that seems to be the process that works best for me. And that's just me. Again, one thing that you can do is take that tinsel, snip it out, and add like a little border around any of the pieces. This is going to kind of save us time when we're nearing the end, and you'll see here, I'm also going to fill in with more of the tinsel. This tinsel really does, it is a superstar to me. And then I discovered that, ooh, that tinsel's a little too long there around Santa. So you can go ahead and just kind of trim it down a little bit. So that way it's not really blocking the view of one of your major items. Now I did think, maybe I want to make this like a Santa wreath. And I was headed that direction for a good time. And then I thought, well, maybe Mrs. Santa Claus should be here. Again, just play around with it. There is no right, there is no wrong. This is not rocket science. Nobody's going to lose their life over it. If you end up hating it, you can throw it away. You could actually don't. What you could do is you could donate it, and I bet you somebody out there is going to see it and absolutely love it. Just remember, we are always our own worst critic. Just because you see the flaws in something that you've made doesn't mean that anybody else isn't. And keep in mind, those very flaws that you might have a problem with might be the very thing that somebody else loves the most about it. I think that's pretty solid life advice, too, if I do say so. So I do have a tendency to kind of jump around. I don't focus on one thing. I will say this is that I do very much have to be in the mood, if you will, to make a Christmas wreath or any wreath. It is a fun, creative process for me. I find if I'm too tired, if I'm rushing, if I feel stressed, I just can't get into it. Look at all that glue. I'm very proud of myself. Now, this green bulb needed, I almost swore, needed a lot of glue. She was she was poking out and didn't have a lot of space. Again, another reason that I like hot glue is you can build it up, let it dry, build it up some more just to make sure that you have a good solid surface. You can see I've gone over certain areas 2 and 3 times, and I'm not worried about having too much glue because again, we can take that tinsel and cover it all up. It doesn't even exist. I would recommend, even if you're using a different kind of glue or an adhesive, and you were gluing the pieces together, to fill in those blank spaces. I think that it just gives it a more finished, a more polished look. Again, we've got our little snips here. And I typically do use these for the floral pieces just so that it doesn't dull my scissors. And frankly, it just cuts way faster. So again, we're still kind of playing around. We're seeing what's what. And then I discover, you know what? Why don't I just go ahead? I know, y'all, I was really trying for that blue bulb behind there. And I said, no. I probably could have put enough hot glue on there, but it would have been forcing it. And that's the other thing that I would advise. If you feel like you're forcing something, it's probably not the right decision. Again, I discovered a blank space So we're going to fill in with the tinsel. Again, if I was using more florals, I would still use my tinsel to fill in around it. Again, I personally don't like the look of the foam core. I don't want to see it poking out anywhere. Again, I just think that it's just one of those details, especially that somebody that is, they're buying it. They worked for that money one way or the other. And it's just those little things that people will appreciate. The mailman sees it. He doesn't want to see the foam core either, or she. Your mail carrier, they don't want to see it. Your dog doesn't want to see it. Cover it up, folks. Cover up the foam core. That's the only one thing that I would say. Unless, of course, it's just going to hang against a wall. You're like, nobody's going to see it but me, and I don't care. Well, then live your life. I'm not going to judge you. Out loud, that is. So again, look at all that glue. Look at all that glue. Go all the way around. Go up onto the side. Secure it. Don't, if you're thinking, am I using too much glue? Add a little bit more glue, darn it. The more, the merrier. Again, trust me, it's going to last the longer. No, it's not going to last the longer you put the glue. It will last longer the more glue you put on there. So again, filling in those blank spaces with the tinsel, going all the way in, because the human eye, it'll look in there. And that's the point. You want it to draw the eye. And the last thing you want it to do is somebody to go, look at that cheap wreath. They didn't even finish it. So again, you got to get in there. Got to get in there, folks. We are almost done with our wreath, you guys. And then I'm thinking, do I want to add more? And I'm like, I don't know. Again, here, that advice. I feel like I'm kind of starting to force it. I'm trying to force it. And then I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it simpler. There's more focus on the Santa heads. I think it makes it look a little bit, dare I say, high end. Now at this point, I've decided to just go ahead and fill in with smalls, little details, little pops of colors, little added textures. We've got small Christmas bulbs here, glass. Again, just for a little bit more visual appeal. Got a little green one we're adding in there. Again, I don't glue anything down. I don't put glue on and think I'm going to stick it here. No, don't do that. Play around with the piece, see if you like it. If you do, then glue it down. Even then, you may change your mind. I love adding jingle bells to my wreaths. I will say that because they're not hanging down or they're not hanging vertically, they don't necessarily jingle as much. But the overall aesthetic, I do love it. It is a Christmas wreath after all. So again, we're just kind of building in different textures, a few more colors to it. We're not trying to overdo this wreath. Hey, look, in the past, have I overdone some wreaths and has it just been like, whoa? Yes, it has. That just, again, isn't this wreath. That's not who this wreath wanted to be. Again, for me, it really is a discovery process, and the wreath kind of lets me know who it wants to be as we go along. So I always save the small little pieces until the very end, just in case I missed a little area. Maybe you want to fill in a little gap. If you want, again, another different little splash of color. What I'm really trying to do is add a little bit more of that red-green color scheme to it. Again, I have a little metal Santa here. We're going to pop him up there. Again, nothing big, just some small details. I don't even know why. That ended up going underneath the sled and attaching to the glue, and I was like, well, apparently you're going to stay there. Again, mistakes happen. It's not the end of the world. And I was playing around with the white, kind of seeing, should I add white? Here it is, you guys. This is our wreath. I'm really pleasantly surprised at how much I like this wreath. Like I said, it is a little kitschy, especially with the doll Santa heads on there, the Christmas bulbs, the lights, the jingle bells, that gorgeous tinsel. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it inspires you to go out there, make your own wreaths, not only for Christmas, but for any of the seasons, for a birthday, for a holiday, you name it. There she is in all of her glory. And yes, I will be selling this wreath. But until next time, guys, remember, keep it rusty, keep it dusty, and keep it crusty.